And you'll see that I'm going to zoom in on these. I got very excited. So this is the next lot coming through.
Do y'all remember when these parasite cleanses were huge on TikTok and everyone was talking about it? Well, this is apparently a parasite cleanse and they're getting a colonic afterwards. And I can't imagine. It's just, ew.
Oh my God. You guys, I've been doing the cleanse. It's day 4 of the cleanse.
In a world first, a neurosurgeon in Australia has removed a worm found alive in a woman's brain.
They say about 30-40% of the world is infected with toxoplasmosis.
Ah yes, parasites. Tapeworms, ringworms, hookworms, and more. If you grew up in America, these nasty little suckers probably never crossed your mind. Most Americans assume parasites only exist in poor foreign countries. Don't drink the water in Mexico, you could get a parasite. Don't eat the street food in China, you could get a parasite.
Travel can be so exciting. New places to see and new foods to eat. But that can lead to a downside. Traveler's diarrhea can ruin your trip.
And yet all the Americans we just showed you, the people in the videos who took a parasite cleanse and got some interesting results, they weren't traveling to foreign countries all the time. They weren't eating questionable street meat and drinking dirty water. They were all just living a normal life in America for years. And yet they still have parasites. And you watching this video right now, you might have parasites in you without even knowing. Because the reality is, 1 in 5 Americans have a parasite in them right now. That's right, 1 out of 5 of you watching this right now might have a parasite in you. All it takes is drinking a little bit of dirty water once, eating day-old sashimi, kissing the wrong person, eating too many clams.
Where are people picking up these parasites most commonly? At the airport, through their friends, sharing food with people, kissing people, barefoot on the earth, which is crazy because I'm a barefoot guy, right? You know, sitting on a bathroom stall and on the toilet.
And boom, your body becomes this guy's new home. But don't worry too much, because parasites won't send you to the hospital right away, but eventually they do grow and take up more space, which means over time, they can bury themselves deep within your body. They hang out in your gut and rob you of nutrients.
Hookworms latch onto the insides of your intestines and suck out the blood, which can lead to anemia, slower cognitive growth, and malnutrition.
They can even change the way you think.
It's only recently that people have sort of started wondering about the effects that it can have on adult people. There's kind of increasing awareness that it may lead to certain mental health conditions. It can infiltrate our brains and form these tissue cysts up there. And some scientists think that it may lead to psychological problems as diverse as, rage disorders to schizophrenia.
So if you feel constantly tired, if you have weird symptoms like itchy elbows, fatigue, or extreme sugar cravings, if you have depression, anxiety, or the slew of other things that we just accept as commonplace today, and if it seems you tried like everything and nothing seems to cure these issues, and then you go to the doctor and they just tell you it's genetic, or that you have autoimmune disease, and they just tell you to shove a bunch of big pharma drugs down your throats, well, the reality is, you might just have parasites in you. But the good news is that all the people you saw earlier, once they did a parasite cleanse, everything changed.
This is a jar full of whipworms. I found them. This is from just one session of the toilet. I'm not going into details, but that's them. I found out they also cause anemia.
I used it on my last seasonal cleanse, and the things that came out of my body, I know this is gross, but I have to say it. I had like slimy mucus and worms in my poop.
What's sad is that Americans used to be a lot more resistant to parasites. Back in the days when our food wasn't depleted of nutrients and we weren't spending 10 hours a day in a box under fluorescent lights, our immune systems could naturally fight the parasites off. But now millions of Americans are becoming infested with these organisms, and they're making us sicker and sicker by the day.
I've been pooping out parasites. I have seen them in the toilet bowl.
You guys remember that lobster I ate about a week ago? Well, it had a parasite in it, and I'm pretty sure I'm infected. Ever since I ate it, I've been going to the bathroom nonstop. My diarrhea is unstoppable.
I told a few friends, and they're like, are you sure it was a parasite? To give you a measurement, it was about this long, from this finger to this finger. That's how long it was. Looked like a tapeworm.
A tiny brain-eating parasite has already claimed the life of a boy following exposure to the amoeba. It enters the body through the nose and can cause inflammation, seizures, coma, potentially death.
And in this video, we are gonna expose it all.
Time to unveil what Dr. Oz calls the mother of all parasites.
This nickname
not picking it up.
is Wormzilla.
No. Is this what they call a tapeworm?
This is a tapeworm.
Oh, okay.
And these tapeworm can grow up to 30 feet.
It's not alive, right? It's dead.
No, it's dead.
Parasites are literally everywhere. They're in your tap water, your unwashed produce. They're even in the tiny particles you inhale when you change your cat's litter.
So there's a few ways you can get it. I mentioned, changing cat litter, gardening. If you don't really thoroughly scrub vegetables, there's still dirt particles on it. You can get it that way.
And these parasites are wreaking havoc on our bodies. But back in the early 1900s, they weren't even close to such a big deal. Farmers breathed in parasites all day while they worked in barns or fields. But these farmers were also eating a diet that was super rich in vitamins and minerals. They were eating food grown in mineral-rich soil that was carefully tilled on small-scale farms. And because of their mineral-rich diet, their immune systems were super powerful. The parasites they breathed into the air or from eating slightly spoiled meat wasn't a big deal, because their stomach acid and immune system was strong enough to deal with them. So people and parasites have lived side by side for hundreds of thousands of years without any major issues. But then the Industrial Revolution spread across the world and everything changed. Now it wasn't about growing quality food in mineral-rich soil, it was more about how much food can we grow in the least amount of time and for the least amount of money possible. Before, farmers were forced to go slowly with their farming because they didn't have any other choice. All they had was a measly old rake and pitchfork. But with the introduction of machinery, automatic tractors, mowers, and yes, automatic pesticide sprayers, farmers can now plant way more crops while saving both time and money. Instead of using organic mineral-rich fertilizers like manure, which took way longer to produce, commercial farmers started using new improved synthetic fertilizers made from fossil fuels. And instead of taking their time and rotating crops to increase mineral levels in the soil, farmers would plant their crops, harvest them, and then replant on the same rundown soil, until the soil was completely devoid of any nutrients like it is today. And it didn't take long for all this empty food to start affecting people's health. As the decades passed on, Americans became more and more susceptible to parasite infections. Their stomach acid got weaker, their immune systems got weaker, their overall health got worse, and suddenly the parasites started to win. Suddenly, people were getting skin problems like psoriasis, something that was not common before, while chronic stomach issues and bloating became a thing for the first time. My friend Noah Ryan, who's dedicated his life to finding out what actually works when it comes to health and vitality, was experiencing a lot of these symptoms when he found out that he had parasites in his system.
Parasites are those microbes or organisms that do not provide value to us and strictly leach from us, right? And my personal experience, it's like most people, or really anybody for that matter that's ever traveled, eaten raw fish or anything, I've been exposed to a lot of parasites. And, because of gut issues that I've had and just because of, the natural state of our digestive systems, some of those parasites do result in an infection. But I was actually going to school in Thailand and I ate undercooked pork. And I was the sickest that I've ever been. I had a horrible fever. I had the worst chills and convulsions. I was in bed for 2 days and I was absolutely miserable. And once that acute infection went away, I thought I was good. But I was not the same. I was there for another 6 months and, I had horrible digestive issues. I just had really bad stomach pains and it was diagnosed as IBD, irritable bowel disorder. And it wasn't until, I really started digging into it because I'm like, there's something I need to do for this. And I tried taking antibiotics and they didn't work. I tried doing a lot of things that, doctors were prescribing me and they didn't work. And it wasn't until I went down the parasite rabbit hole that I realized that I had trichinosis, which is a very common microscopic parasite that's found pretty abundantly in pork in particular.
We'll link to Noah's Twitter below. He's one of the guys that I really trust for health-related stuff. And aside from the immediate symptoms like fever, chills, convulsions, the long-term effects on Noah's psyche thanks to his parasite infection were what really hurted him.
There is a class of organisms called parasitic manipulators. They were once thought to be very rare, but now experts in the field think they're much, much more common than realized. And these organisms typically invade an animal and they can do all kinds of things. For example, they can tinker with the neurocircuits of their host. Sometimes they change the hormone levels or levels of neurochemicals. They've got a whole bunch of different tactics that allow them to basically make the host behave the way they want it to.
A parasite's number one goal is to multiply. They want to mate with other parasites, lay eggs, and slowly take over whatever host they're living in. And because of this instinct to reproduce, when you have parasites in your body, they can drive you to do things that are a little bit out of character. When mice are infected with Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite only found in cats, the parasites actually make the mice sexually attracted to cat urine, which causes the mouse to not run when a cat approaches.
Surfing the internet looking for interesting topics to write about, I came across an article about a parasite, a one-celled protozoan that invades the brain of rats, and it turns its innate fear of cats into an attraction. And when I say attraction, I mean sexual attraction. The rodents become sexually aroused by the scent of cat urine.
That's a very bad thing for a mouse to be.
Yes. And what I learned is, needless to say, that the rat soon ends up in the belly of a cat, which of course is very convenient for the cat.
And here's the thing. Right now, 30% of the human population has this exact same parasite in them. And some scientists think that this parasite makes humans more sexually promiscuous too.
And when I continued reading, I learned that about 30% of people around the world have this parasite in their brains. The vast majority of them completely ignorant of the fact. And that some scientists were concerned that it might actually be altering our behavior too.
And it's not just mice getting hooked on cat urine. There are dozens of terrifying examples of animals getting infected by a parasite only to start behaving in a really weird, unnatural way.
You see a spider on the left-hand side of the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a tiny little white glob on one side of the spider, and that is the egg of a parasitic wasp. The wasp attached it there, and as the egg develops into a little larva, it produces a lot of chemicals. And these chemicals tell the spider to build the wasps basically a custom designed nursery. So the spider abandons its normal weaving style, and in this case you can see that the normal weaving style is in the center, and to the far right you can see a pretty crazy looking web.
Here are some of the drastic changes no one noticed.
And I think the worst thing is the chronic uneasiness that I had when dealing with that infection in terms of, like my mental health. I just had horrible brain fog. I couldn't focus for the life of me. I was chronically underlyingly anxious, which I normally am not. And you just feel miserable. And, a lot of that is your body actively trying to fight these organisms and actively being in a state of toxicity.
Okay. And are one of the symptoms like depression or anxiety or stuff like that?
Absolutely, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of these diagnoses, they call it, clinical depressive, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. All those are just, disorders, right? And any disorder, it's not a true diagnosis. It's just a bundle of symptoms. So, the mental aspect is pretty significant. And we know that a lot of parasites can, hypothetically infect the brain.
And it's not like these symptoms are super rare or only happen in extreme cases. The stereotype of the ignorant, slow-talking southerner was actually thought to be due to a widespread hookworm infection.
The lazy, mouth-breathing southerner came from massive amounts of people that were infected with parasites. And these parasites were extremely common, particularly when people walk around barefoot and they would get these worms. These worms would get into their system, and one of the side effects of these worms was a decreased brain function.
Which leaves us with a lot of important questions. Do southerners talk the way they do because a parasite infected their community? Are cat ladies crazy because they're breathing in parasites all day? And is our society decaying because we have parasites in us that are telling us to overeat, procrastinate, and be sexually promiscuous? As crazy as it sounds, parasites could play a role in at least part of these things.
A normal mouse, for example, with a normal gut microbiota, eager learner, very curious. If you put a napkin ring in its cage, it will circle it and sniff it with great interest. The same strain of mouse without the normal gut microbiota is not very curious. It's a slow learner. It doesn't remember where it's been, and it doesn't avoid wide open spaces and brightly lit areas, which would scream danger to a normal mouse.
All the spirochetes and a lot of these bacteria and infections and viruses, they get into the brain. They get into the spinal cord. Like Lyme gets into the brain pretty quick, gets into this. They like those areas because there's a lot of nerve tissue.
Once parasites get into your central nervous system, they can hide out in cysts and infect you for life.
We took him home on a Wednesday, and he died on a Saturday.
A worm was removed from a woman's brain.
Imagine a worm swimming inside your eye.
These things are pooping in our body as well. So it's massive heavy loads in the body, which then go to all the co-infections, right? So all the co-infections start to ignite. And then now we're talking about, we're getting all these symptoms. And what is mainstream calling it? They're calling it, chronic fatigue syndrome. They're calling it, fibromyalgia. They're calling it autoimmune conditions, when the whole time it's just a massive burden of all of these different things in the body that are taking us away from our optimal health. Our immune system's essentially getting stretched.
Chances are, if you're an American watching this video, you know at least one person with an autoimmune disease like psoriasis, or celiac disease where they can't eat bread, or a thyroid disease that makes them tired all the time. Maybe you yourself have one of these problems. And these days, if you go to the doctor and you complain that you can't digest bread anymore, or you have rashes all over your body, they'll usually tell you it's autoimmune disease. An autoimmune disease is when your own immune system, that has been literally working fine for decades, suddenly decides out of nowhere to just turn against you. A doctor may even explain it like a switch flipped in your body and there's nothing you can do about it. They'll say it's probably genetic. Maybe someone in your family line 10 generations ago had a faulty gene, and now you'll just have to deal with it. At this point, the doctor will give you a prescription for some super expensive drugs that will probably do more damage in the long run, and that's it. But just like parasite infections, autoimmune diseases are super new. They actually only became a thing in the mid-20th century, but once they arrived, they quickly spread. Since the 1950s, autoimmune diseases have been skyrocketing.
Aya Mariani, a busy personal trainer, started to lose hair, gain weight, and her get up and go got up and went. She suspected something was wrong.
My metabolism had already crashed at that point.
Talia says medical tests revealed she suffered from Hashimoto's, an autoimmune disease that attacks her thyroid.
It's challenging. It's hard.
Hashimoto's is just one of more than 80 different kinds of autoimmune disorders, like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, and celiac disease. All are more common in women. Statistics show not only are the diseases frequent in our society,
well, they're increasing, and that's the part that's very concerning. We don't know exactly why that's occurring.
Why the sudden jump? Well, let's think about it for a second. Nutrient-void food from our mineral-deficient soil, working inside all day under fluorescent lights, instead of working outside in the sun, pesticides in our food and water supply, all leading to a weakened immune system, which leads to parasites running rampant in our bodies. Scientists are starting to realize that the reason for these autoimmune diseases isn't that your immune system has randomly decided to hate you out of thin air, it's because of viruses, bacteria, and parasites. Studies are coming out showing that autoimmune disorders like Hashimoto's, IBS, and psoriasis can all be linked to a parasite infection. So what is the solution if you have parasites in you? The answer is a parasite cleanse. As gross as it is to think about, there is a legitimate possibility that you have a parasite in you right now. And the only way to stop them from ruining your life is to get rid of them with a parasite cleanse. But there are a ton of these parasite cleanses on the markets. Paragard is a popular one right now, but according to Noah, you don't want to just go in and kill all the parasites in your system all at once. Why? Because parasites can hold up to 10 times their own body weight in toxins like heavy metals. So if you annihilate all your parasites at once, those toxins will get released into your bloodstream and might literally even make you more sick than you already are. That's why it's important to follow a very specific regimen.
How do you cleanse yourself of parasites?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have these natural mechanisms. The first step is refortifying those, because you're not, it's almost impossible to not be exposed to some form of parasitic organism, all the time. Your goal should be to make yourself as resilient as possible. So making sure that your digestion is optimized, that you're not actively detracting from those natural mechanisms by eating food that damages your gut, by consuming a lot of pesticides, right? Food ridden with pesticides, by not consuming some of these fortified foods that have these non-bioavailable forms of minerals like iron or even folic acid that are going to further contribute to pathogenic growth. And I think most importantly, optimizing for baseline nutrition to make sure that those natural mechanisms have the building blocks they need to function properly. I am particularly big on lowering stress. And we think about stress as like work stress, right? As psychological stress. But when I say stress, I just mean any detractors to our health. Electromagnetic frequencies are something that I personally look at. I definitely notice a difference because I live in somewhere that has very low EMF. It's a very low EMF environment. They have 3G, not even 4G LTE or 5G. And, I'm not just surrounded by Wi-Fi routers. So I think that's a factor as well, just because of the low level inflammation that it causes at a systemic level every single day.
Okay, makes sense. I've heard of parasite cleanses. Do those work? And how do you do them?
Yeah, I think parasite cleanses are effective, and it's oftentimes a multi-step thing. It's not just like take one pill and you'll be cured. It is a gradual process of slowly making your internal environment less and less habitable to these parasites. There's a lot of good brands out there that make some more advanced products. There's a lot of natural compounds as well. But, the interesting to me is that a lot of these very ancient tribal rituals, if that's what you want to call them, like plant medicines, like ayahuasca, those were naturally and initially used as purging agents, right, for that purpose, right? That's why they make you throw up. That's why they make you kind of just flush everything. So I think there's a lot of natural things that you can use on like a gradual basis. But, one of the best selling pharmaceutical drugs out there is ivermectin. And, they want to paint it as a horse dewormer and something that is not suitable for human consumption. And, hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but I'm just saying the fact that it has been used for so long in human use cases and saved countless lives because of its efficacy as an anti-parasitic. Now, in some places you can get ivermectin over the counter. Where I live, I can just get ivermectin over the counter. So, typically, like in common practice throughout a lot of cultures, having a biannual parasite cleanse is quite effective. And I personally go that route. And then sometimes I'll include some other anti-parasitic compound herbs, like herbal compounds. And there's so many, black walnuts, a big one. Oregano oil is one of my personal favorites. I just think that if you really think you're dealing with a parasitic infection, you should do the research and do it right and really kind of understand it from top to bottom. Now, the issue with killing off any pathogenic organism is that they have a toxin load, right? As I mentioned, parasites hold, up to 10 times their body weight in heavy metals. So you kill off that parasite, you're going to be releasing a lot of those toxins back into your system. Or say you dislodge a parasite from its tissue, it has the opportunity to go and relodge into a different tissue. So it's important to, whenever you're doing any form of this, make sure that your primary stage 1 and stage 2 detox functions are operating properly, right? Like your liver is that primary detox organ, making sure that your liver is, in tip-top shape. So obviously avoiding detractors, right? What are those detractors going to be? Alcohol, that's going to be having just suboptimal nutrition in general. I personally take liver boosting herbs like Tudka, which is one of my personal favorites. So that's step number 1. And then step number 2 is using binding agents. So these agents that essentially have the capability to absorb some of these toxins, they have like really high surface area, things like zeolite, bentonite clay, activated charcoal, which is my personal favorite. And that's going to bind up some of, these endotoxins and help you safely excrete those.
Okay. For the more natural stuff like oregano oil, what does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, fasting is something that people try to use, right? Because as I mentioned, parasites feed off the same things that you feed off of. So a lot of people will do prolonged fasts. They will essentially slowly make their environment less inhabitable for these parasites. Oregano oil is more of a slow tapering off. Black walnut, it's kind of the same thing. There's a number of other ones as well, but those are the primary ones that I've personally used. And these aren't without their risk factors, right? Like these are powerful natural herbs.
So you have phase 1, which is to support your digestion and liver function with a healthy diet full of organic pesticide-free foods that are hopefully grown in mineral-rich soil. Then we have phase 2, killing the parasites using something like ivermectin or natural herbs. The natural herbs will take a lot longer though. And then phase 3, which is taking a binding agent like activated charcoal to absorb the heavy metals that will be released. Another thing Noah really recommends you avoid, which I never thought of, is iron-fortified foods, because parasites love to fuel themselves on metals like iron. So if you needed yet another reason to cut out American fortified wheat and flour, this is it. And while you're doing a parasite cleanse, he also recommends taking something like colostrum to support your microbiome and digestion during the process.
Well, colostrum's primary mechanism is being incredible for fortifying your gut health, right? So rebalancing your gut and subsequently your digestive system. So a lot of it is that preventative mechanism. It's going to make you more resilient. And colostrum really is in my opinion, one of the closer things I've seen to a panacea for its abilities to induce IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. So it's incredibly anabolic. It's incredibly healing. But in terms of parasites in particular, it does seem to do a pretty beneficial job at bolstering your immune immune system, right? Because what colostrum is it's the first milk that's released from a ruminant animal like a goat or like a cow for their child. And the primary focus and reason that this milk is special is because that is the milk that is going to populate and fortify that new calf or that new baby goat's immune system. And it has the same similar function with us in humans. So we've seen colostrum used a lot for, persistent viral infections. We've seen colostrum used a lot for fungal infections, bacterial infections, and parasitic infections also fall in that bucket.
And if you're interested in colostrum, the brand I recommend is Miracle Moo. No, Noah is not affiliated with Miracle Moo at all, but I am the sponsor of this video. What I love about Miracle Moo is that there are no natural flavors, no sweeteners, none of the bad stuff. It's literally just pure grass-fed colostrum powder along with immunolin, which is a special type of protein that increases how much of the nutrients in colostrum your body can uptake, making Miracle Moo more effective than anything on the markets. All it takes is a scoop a day. I've been using it for a while now to improve my gut microbiome and obviously to prevent things like parasitic infections. And it works, not only for me but for these people too. People report higher energy, better sleep, their gut is less angry, their immune system is better, they're not as bloated anymore, and much, much more. And Miracle Moo is giving you a special 10% discount so you can try it out for yourself. Just click the link below to buy it on Amazon now. So scroll down, click the link below to try Miracle Moo now. And don't forget to follow Noah on Twitter while you're at it. Stay dangerous and we'll see you in the next one.